Yasmeen Khan. This is BBC Three Counties Radio. It's your station for beds, hearts and bugs.
6:10 on Sunday evening. If you've just joined me, welcome along. It's Yasmeen here with you as always, taking you through to 8 p.m. Now, I keep looking at my screen and looking at this introduction to this topic and going over and over this figure which is on the screen, and it says that 1 in 4 women will be affected by domestic abuse at some point in their lives. Now, that's a horrific figure on any level, but it makes it perhaps all the more surprising if that many people are affected, that it's still so difficult to talk about, because for many victims, disclosing it and confiding in someone is a really difficult step to take, which is why a network of domestic abuse champions is being set up in Hertfordshire that will be based in businesses and organisations. Bilqees, who is a Watford councillor, has experienced domestic abuse herself and is involved in the initiative and joins me in the studio now. Thank you so much for coming in.
Hello, thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Bilqees, if you don't mind, could we start with your own story? When and how did the abuse start in your relationship?
So my abuse started when I was 18. I got married when I was 19, and my partner at the time was very abusive towards me. Mm-hmm. I lived in a world where obviously I didn't know this was happening and this was wrong.
And when you say that, what do you mean? Because you were young, or because nobody had talked to you about your rights?
Yeah, nobody talked about being in a marriage that, he will treat you well. I always thought, I loved him more than I loved myself. But when I started seeing the fact that he was abusing me, he was calling me names, I felt frightened, I was scared. And I wasn't getting the love that I needed.
So you knew it was wrong on some level.
I did realise, I realised it wasn't right. But in those days, in my community, and because I was one of the first who actually got married very young, I didn't want my marriage to fail. I don't know what would have happened to me if I did leave at that point, so I decided to stick with it.
Did you tell anyone?
No, I didn't tell anybody about it. No, I didn't.
And how long did it go on for?
So it went on before I got married, all the way up till 2006 when I left. I was training as a nurse at the time, and I remember wearing my uniform to work, and that used to help me kind of realise that I was somebody else. I was protected when I was wearing my uniform. I was in a place where it was safe working on the wards. But as soon as I went home, it was a different story.
And what form, I know you mentioned the sort of psychological abuse, but what other forms did it take?
He used to punch me. I used to get kicked. He used to beat me up to the point where I'd fall on the floor. I was no different to a floorboard. I remember still smelling the dust. He used to bang my head against the door, the bathroom door. He used to shout all the time. I was called everything under the sun. But at the time I thought he needed me. I thought I was doing wrong. I thought I wasn't a wife. I couldn't please him. So I forever felt that tomorrow will be a better day. He'll be better tomorrow. He'll be in a better mood tomorrow. It's not his fault.
Were you blaming yourself?
Yes, I did. I blamed myself for many years until I realised it wasn't my fault. And I think a lot of women out there, initially when you go through abuse, when someone enters your personal space and start hitting you, the very hands that makes love to you is those hands that he hits. You just can't make sense of it. Your whole body goes numb. Your feelings go numb.
And this is the thing. I see a lot of people, when we talk about stories like this, and people go, well, I wouldn't stand for it. I'd just walk out. It's a lot easier said than done, isn't it? And here's the other irony is, I'm sure if someone had come to you, a friend had come to you and said it was happening to her, you would have said to her, it's not your fault, get out.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think my friends around me at the time probably felt that I wasn't myself. I was very quiet. I was very low in confidence. They probably thought, you know what, this marriage ain't working. But to be honest with you, no one said anything at the time, and I didn't feel comfortable talking about it.
So you didn't reach out to a parent, a friend, a sibling, nobody?
No. I felt it was best to keep it a secret. I was always told whatever happens to you in your marriage behind closed doors stays behind closed doors.
Who told you that?
It was how I was raised, my people in my family. I was partly raised in Mauritius, and it's what people used to say.
And so this presumably went on for years.
It went on for years, yeah.
You hid bruises?
I had bruises. I hid them. I used to wear big baggy jumpers and jeans. I never used to wear makeup. I felt ugly. I felt dirty.
And when it happened, and sadly it sounded like it happened very often, was there ever any conversation about it afterwards? Was there contrition from him? Was there an attempt for him to say, I'll stop this, I'll get better, I'll get help?
Yeah, all those promises, the promises that there will be change, that he will be there for me, he will be better, he'll be a better husband, he'll be a better father. But I just felt myself going through a spiral. It's like every day you expect something good happens, and the next day it will be hell break loose in my house. It was awful.
What prompted you eventually to get out and get help?
I had enough. I think it got to the point where it was affecting my work. So before I went on duty, if I had to leave my house at 5:30, he'll start arguing with me before I leave. And it got to the point where I had to call my colleagues and say, I'm trapped. I can't leave my house. I can't come to work. And it was then that one of the nurses said, look, I'm calling the police. And I think she did and I did at the same time. It happened so fast. It was on April Fool's Day. It was on the 1st of April. And she thought it was a joke at first. But when the police came, when I saw those two police officers in their uniform and I was in mine, I felt strength. I felt, please take me away, do something. And they were very, very good. They knew exactly what to say. And they pulled me aside and I told them, look, this isn't right. He's hurting me. I couldn't say domestic abuse or violence, we used to call it back in those days. I thought I had a disease. That's how bad it was. It was almost like I was living in denial. At work, so at home you would have the abuse that will happen, then you'll go to work and you'll find a parent that is going through domestic violence, a woman that's going through domestic violence and her child is in the ward and you're looking after that family. It's almost like it's difficult to kind of for your brain to kind of function.
You separate it out, don't you?
I do, because we're taught this. When you walk into the wards, you forget your problems, you forget everything, and you walk in, you're a nurse, you're there to help people.
And I'm just looking at you telling your story, and I can see it in your eyes. You're sat in front of me, a strong, confident woman out there working, being a counsellor from a nursing background. What would you say, what would this Bilqees say now to that one who was sitting in that situation before she was able to take that step?
I would say, Bilqees, take your stuff and run, because life is better. You know, the grass does get greener on the other side and you make that happen. Be strong. It's not easy, but I've built foundations of all the swearing and all the things that he's thrown at me, around me as a wall to protect myself. I have a vision, I have dreams that I want to fulfill and go out there and do it. Life is better. You will survive, but you just need to accept yourself first of all. You need to plan your exit, how you're going to leave the relationship. And at the time, it was the police that helped me. It was the services like the Watford Women's Centre in Watford. I went to visit them on a few occasions in secret, and they were the ones that sort of helped me get through things.
And once your story was out and that you'd asked for help, what was that reaction that, one of the things I know you were afraid of was what will people say? What will, the fact that I've been brought up to not talk about this? What happened with all of that?
By the time I actually left, I didn't really care what people said. It got to the point where, you know what, my life is worth more. I have 2 sons. I don't want them to be raised to see a mother that's weak. I want them to see that you've got a strong mum, and life is worth celebrating rather than sitting there being tearful and crying at home. No, I wouldn't allow that.
And although you were not able initially to admit it out loud to yourself, you were writing it down, weren't you?
Yes, so I came across this last night. I used to keep a diary of certain events that happened, and I thought I'd bring the diary in, and if we had a chance, I just wanted to read my last entry, which was in 2004.
So this was before you asked for help?
This was, before I asked for help. I think after that, it was not far until I left. Do you mind if I quickly read it? So, okay, so Dear Sheba. So Sheba is, my name means the Queen of Sheba, so my diary was addressed to her. It has been a while, Sheba. I married a monster, and I fear for my life. I have no one I could talk to. All these times he made me so sad, I questioned my love for him. I am so hurt, my feelings have gone. I can't breathe, and I'm so unhappy. Sheba, it's not just feelings, but he hits me, his hands that he uses to make love to me. It is those hands that he slaps, pulls my hair, and pushes me around. He threw a frying pan at me, an electric razor, and stabbed my head. I have 2 boys. My youngest baby is just over a month, and my C-section hurts. I love my boys very much, but how I had them, my pregnancy, he was awful. My body is an object, it has no feelings. What have I done? If I leave him, no one will marry me. Who will take care of me and my children? I have no money, I have no home, and no one would believe me. They say I'm suffering from domestic violence. What is that? I can say, is it a disease? Am I part of a statistic? What are the symptoms? I feel weak, naive, knowing that you can keep quiet and not say anything, can't talk about the way you really feel, low in confidence. My smile is fake. I'm ugly and dirty. My hands are weak. My dreams is only a dream. I cry a lot and my body hurts. Is domestic violence a disease, Sheba? Because I have these qualities, does this make me a target? But I don't want to be this way, so I want to make a change. I want to be a woman in a suit. I want to be strong. I want to help the poor. I want to love a man and be happy. I want to smile. And I want to be a good mother to my children. I want no one to suffer like I have. I want my pain to go away. I want this disease to go away. But no one is going to listen. Maybe it's all in my head. Sheba, if I'm not thinking straight. He was very angry last night. Both kids were crying. We hardly slept. He hardly slept. And he was in a terrible mood. It's dark inside this room. I have stayed in this room for days with my kids. I am scared to walk around the house. He may beat me again. I am weak. I want my life to end. Sheba, help me and save me from this life. My head hurts from the door he banged my head from several times whilst I was on the floor. Sheba, what type of love is this? Is it because he loves me so much he does this? I have 2 kids. Now I belong to him. He owes me. I want to die. I have to stay alive, though. I know I do, for my boys. And I will live, won't I? So that was my last entry.
Bilqees, thank you for reading that out, because it's a heart-rending description of a victim and somebody who was so low. And yet, I know you call yourself Sheba in that, but the person that helped you ultimately was you.
It was myself, yeah.
And you had to take that step. And we've got a few minutes, and I know you want to talk about this network of domestic abuse champions.
The J9.
Tell me how it's going to work.
So for me, at my workplace, I work for a company called MedicsPro, a medical recruitment agency, and I'm the clinical nurse manager there. So my boss, first of all, said he's donating £500 towards the Watford Women's Centre. But also what we are going to do is create a safe place in the waiting area for a victim, any of my colleagues, any of the nurses or doctors that we look after that, work for us can actually come to the office and speak to me and have a safe space to actually make a phone call or go onto the internet and get some information. So that's one of the steps that we're making. But being a champion in Watford, as representing J9, is that we are open, we're here to listen, we're here to direct you to services that you could use around. We have a booklet that tells us all the information that we need so we can support you to make the right decision, and also be aware of the cultural differences and backgrounds where people come from, because obviously it's a bit tricky when it comes to certain cultures. So these are things that we do, and I make a plea to all businesses to try and nominate somebody within their workplace to actually appoint a champion, so that colleagues and members of the team can actually come and speak to them in confidence.
Really novel way of getting some help out there, isn't it?
Action. I tell you what, years ago when I wish when I was pregnant during my maternity in labour ward, I wish the midwives asked me at the time if I was living with someone who I was frightened of. It was only a year ago I went to visit my nurse in my surgery, and she asked me that question. And I looked at her and I said, wow, how times have changed. We are going in the right direction. There is help out there. You're not alone. And anybody that is considering leaving or is suffering from domestic abuse is reach out, because someone will hold your hand.
Thank you so much for coming in and sharing your story, because sadly there will be people listening who have yet to take that step and are just waiting, because it's so hard, and we mustn't judge those that are not yet able to do it. It's incredibly difficult. If people want to find out more information, I think it's heartsdomesticabusehelpline.org /champions. I'll read that out one more time. That's heartsdomesticabusehelpline.org /champions. Bilqees, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate your time for coming in. And of course, there is always the BBC Action Line if you want